Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the Zeiss 12mm F2.8. 2.8. That's how Zeiss called this lens. Wide angle option for Fujifilm and Sony if you want. Let's roll the intro and then we'll be back here to talk about it. Here we are again. Why did I define this lens an often forgotten choice? With Fujifilm you have a lot of lenses to choose from, like the 8-16, the 10-24, the 14mm f2.8. So it's hard to look around when you look for a wide angle lens. Although when you start considering the size and the weight, you start to see that your options are not that many, because this lens, the Zeiss lens, is fairly small and fairly compact and fairly lightweight lens for a super wide angle f2.8 lens at only 275 grams. So when you put this into perspective, your only option in the original Fujifilm lenses is the 14 f2.8, which is a little bit smaller and a little bit lighter. And it's a great lens, don't get me wrong, but it's not as wide as this. And that's the reason why I have this lens and not the 14, which I owned a few years ago. The reason why this lens is often overlooked is because of its cost. I guess there's no other reason for that, because this lens, when it got announced, costed a fairly 200 euros or dollars more than the 14mm f2.8, and it was above that $1,000 or euros threshold that make you think twice before buying a lens. Plus, the autofocus is not super fast, and there's a few things in the construction that are not as good, but we'll talk about it after. And don't get me wrong, I also was in that same bandwagon because I didn't buy it new. I only bought it used the moment I found a decent price for it. And the reason why I bought it is because I had the 14mm f2.8 first, which wasn't wide enough for me, or at least for what I was doing. Then I bought the 10-24, which maybe was my lens, but I wasn't super satisfied with the result that I was getting. So I was looking for something very wide that would give me the quality that I wanted. So when I stumbled on this used lens, I decided to give it a try and started using it. It was almost 2 years ago, and I've been using this lens since that moment without any issues. 99% of the time for landscapes, or internal photography, but just that's less than 10%, I would say. So the majority of the time is for landscape. And I'm very satisfied with the result. I have very few things to complain. We're gonna analyze my complaints after. So yeah, I guess the main reason for this lens to be sometimes not considered was the price. Now it's a little bit cheaper. It's very comparable to the 14mm, and it makes more sense to have a look at it, even though it's still around $800 new, which is a lot of money, no matter what. Focusing on the image quality of this lens, what can we say? The lens is sharp, starting from f2.8. There's nothing to complain about this lens. It's very it's well defined. It's sharp. It's three-dimensional. I like it a lot. The only thing that it's not as good as the center is the extreme borders, but you would expect it from a super wide-angle lens. So nothing to complain about it. And there's some vignetting, but again, nothing to write home about. And everything gets better at f5.6, where the lens is pretty much perfect. Its close focusing capabilities are not bad, since it focuses at 18 centimeters from the back of the lens, which is very close. So you're gonna get the option to use it for creative close-up shots. And the bokeh that you get out of this lens is good. I like the how the bokeh is. Of course, you don't get that much because it's a super wide angle lens, and despite being 2.8, it just you don't get that much. And when it comes to complaints, the only thing that I can complain about, there's two things that I can complain about this lens. One is, which me seems weird, but when you look at how the things are written in the front of the lens, it's a huge font and it's super bright. When you use filters and there's light leaking from the sides, you see that writing like Distagon F2.8. I know what lens I'm using. I don't want to read it on my picture. So this is something that I hate about this lens. It's not this lens only. Even the Fuji lens has the same thing, but it doesn't show as much. And if it was me, I would put no writing at all on the lens because it makes no sense to write. But my main concern when it comes to image quality is the fact that I would have expected this lens to be better from f16 to f22. I know it's something you don't use that much, and there's people that will never shoot like that, but sometimes when you're in a bright day and you need a very long exposure, despite your ND filters, you may still need to go that far, or you want something in focus in a very close foreground and also the background, and you don't want a focus stack. You need very small apertures. There's a couple of things that I need to take into consideration when talking about this lens. One is that despite the lens being, for the majority of the construction being metal, it has two rubberized rings, the one for the aperture and the other one for the minor focus. Those, I don't know why, they look to me very cheap, and for a lens worth $1,000 or euros, it's not, I would not expect it. And if you want to overlook that, there's one thing that gets my nerve every time I use it. And this is the way the aperture ring works. It is so loose that you can basically change it only looking at it. And it has happened several times to me that I had to that I ruined my shot because I didn't realize that I had moved it from f11 to f2.8 or a different aperture. And this is something that surprised me because I like, as a Fuji user, I like the aperture ring, but I would have loved to have it a little more on the stiff end to prevent accidental changes on this. So that being said, I've used this lens and I've used it for many years now, and I've used it for landscape for the majority of the time, but I've used it also for video. Now, this lens was not born for video. The autofocus makes some noise, so depending on how you record your audio, it may ruin it. But I found that this lens on a gimbal is a very good option for video, especially if you don't need super fast tracking. I used it on a gimbal during a mountain bike race, and you've seen some of this picture in the intro, but some of this footage in the intro, but also I'll show you now. And the lens works very good without any problem, and I found it wide enough for what I was doing, so it was a very good option that I did not expect. And another thing that I would consider is that if you're using a gimbal or if you have a stabilized body, this lens, being not so big and being not so heavy, may become a decent or very good option for vlogging as well. I made a couple of tests. You're seeing them now, and I can't complain, honestly. I'm not a gimbal vlogging style person. I use a pocket, an Osmo Pocket for that. I don't want to carry the bulk, the weight, and the overall complication of having a real gimbal while I'm out. So it's not for me. But if you're looking at a very wide angle f2.8 lens to use probably with ND filters, to use it wide open while vlogging, this is an option that you should consider, because it gets decent results. Honestly, it gets decent results. I think I told you everything about this lens, everything that I think about this lens. I'll leave you with a couple of pictures that I shot during the years with this lens, and I'll ask you to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share it if you think that someone may get good information out of this. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.